Hi, what we are going to see today is about OBIEE 11G architecture. So let me show you how this happens. First, a user connects to the OBIEE layer. Let me just show you one. Let's take one user. Here we have a user. And he tries to connect to a web browser. Yeah. So he tries to access it by a web browser. Okay. So let me just put this as web browser. Okay. This is a web browser. Now this will go to another server, which is actually you will have a HTTPS server in normal one, but here it will be directly going to an application server, and that application server will be something like this. Let me put it as application server. So that is right. Right. So we have the browser. From browser it will go to the application server. Now here the application server is let me just type it here. It's WebLogic. It's WebLogic application server. Previously in 10G this was used to be OC4J, and you could have any other application server, OC4J or Microsoft application server, something like any other application server you could have. But in 11G it is restricted to only one application server, which is WebLogic application server. Now this application server handles everything from everything in the part of security, that is authorization and giving this security details to different kind of servers, which we are going to see it now. Uh, so now with this from WebLogic server, now this WebLogic server is closely integrated with another server. Let me just let me just change the color so that you know the difference. Okay. So bring it to point. Okay. Now this one is nothing but Fusion middleware. Fusion middleware. Now this Fusion middleware actually manages the OBIEE server and any other Hyperion server if you are loading Hyperion also. So this Fusion middleware is a part of everyone, and the security credentials are taken from the application server. So LDAP server or configuring the LDAP or external tables, security, you could do it in the application server. Now the Fusion middleware, and then we have the this we have the BI server, core BI server. Just let me put it as core BI server. Okay, BI server. Now it internally communicates with the NQS config file, and this maintains the repository, and So just let me put it as NQS config file. Whether to build a cache or not, all those things will be defined in the NQS config file. And this NQS config file will be managed by Fusion middleware. In 10G we used to do it manually, but in 11G this is now done through Fusion middleware. Okay. The BA server will not affect anything. NQS config file, you just read the NQS config file. If you want to write something to the NQS config file, then you should do it through Fusion middleware. Now the beauty of this one is managing it through Fusion middleware is, I mean, provides actually graphical user interface to modify the settings of the NQS config file, and there is a less chance of doing an error, because when you try to do manually open the NQS config file and write something, there is nothing which could verify whether what you have written is correct syntax or not. But using a Fusion middleware, it will restrict you to put the correct syntax, so the chances of creating an error in NQS config file is less. So now this Oracle BA server will this one, and we have another server. We have the data warehouse. Okay. Before this one, let me just okay. Okay, we have the BA server, and yeah, this presentation server. So yeah, presentation server for BA server, and we have, so we have the data warehouse or OLTP systems here. Data warehouse and the OLTP systems here, and let me, since it is a two-way communication so remember, every join whatever I'm creating, I just that arrow mark is not one way, it's a two-way only, except this one and this thing. Sometimes, I mean, only Fusion middleware can modify the NQS config file, and from OBIEE server can only read the NQS config file. Okay, and this is bidirectional, this is also bidirectional. Let me put it in the way, let me put bidirectional in the sense. Okay, let me just to avoid the confusion what is happening. Okay, so this is also bidirectional, and this is bidirectional. Okay, so BI server, the Fusion middleware, and presentation server will try to give the data, and if data is not there in this one, it will presentation server will communicate with the BI server, and it will another use BI server is going to use BI server in the sense it is internally it will maintain one file called the repository file. The repository file, repository file. Now repository file is managed by the admin tool, administration repository administration tool. There is a separate tool provided by OBIEE, which is a repository administration tool to manage the repository. So this is basically the typical diagram. So something that's the same thing which we have. So okay, this is something The same thing that I have created after doing the fusion middleware presentation server, repository data warehouse, same thing what I have shown here. It's the same thing. So what do you see here? It is now whenever a user tries to have a report, whenever a user logins to his user account through a web browser, web interface, OBI web interface, that is analytics. That's actually that web browser is that page is called analytics page. Now when he logins to that page and tries to see his dashboard, so what will happen is that will internally communicate with application server, which is WebLogic application server, and which actually communicates with the Fusion middleware, and which in turn communicates with the presentation server. And then if it is presentation, if it is on the presentation server, if the cache is maintained, or if let us put the cache also, presentation cache, CACHE. Okay, so C1 and if cache is enabled, then we'll try to get it from the cache and give you the results. In case if it is not present in the cache, then it will go to the BI server, and based on the we'll go to the BI server, and based on and will communicate with the repository, and then internally this one will communicate with the based on the settings on the repository, will communicate with the data warehouse or the OLTP database and get the data from here, and then you need to load the, in case cache enabled, to load the cache, and then presentation server takes it and makes settings as in presentation server. Now it's important that we remember that the presentation server also can do some of the operations, it can apply some functions, everything it can do. It's not just only presenting the data, it can do some operations also here possible, but the core operations are actually performed on the BS server only and less on the presentation server, and then that data is displayed to the user. So in 10G, what was not there was in 10G this fusion middleware concept was not there, and application server was you could have any application server, and security creation was it was security was to be has to be created individually at every server level. We have also another one which is called BI publisher. BI publisher, this is closely integrated with in 11G. This is closely integrated representation server. Sorry, this is one way. So BI publisher also. So BI publisher is also the security of a BI publisher server or representation server or OBIEE server. All the security is handled by the WebLogic applications and application server. So this is a brief about 11G architecture, and some important components in 11G. Let me just show you. If you see this 11G components, you can divide it into three components, major components. One is called server components, the second one is called client components, and the third one is the repository. Now in the server components, we have two types of components. One is called the core server, and the other one is called the managed server. Now in the core server, we have the following components: BI server, presentation server, BI publisher, Java host. Now if you see the core components, these were also available in under the 10G also. In 10G version, OBIEE 10G version, we had these servers. But in managed servers, this is new in 11G, and we have this Fusion middleware and WebLogic application server. You will see the beauty of a Fusion middleware and WebLogic application server. Even though you may feel it is adding unnecessary extra load on the machine, on the servers, but this is actually quite useful when you are loading multiple. Uh, if you are suppose if you are loading an IP run also, then this Fusion middleware can integrate with that one also, and also the WebLogic application server reduces the efforts required to build multiple security configurations on different servers. I mean, it's a single integrated one. It's a single place where you can define all the security users and their roles or the application roles, and that could be applied across all the servers. And deploying the repository and um, stopping the services, starting the services, and overall managing the different clusters. You could do it through Fusion middleware. Okay, now the next one is the repository, which is a RPD file. That is nothing but the repository database which is going to be built up. So example of the repository is nothing but let me show you. Yeah, this is a BI apps repository. I mean, I think you will not be able to see the total one because the screen is limited. Okay, anyway, we'll see that later. Now we have the client components, which we have browser-based clients and Windows-based client tools. Now Windows-based tools, let's see first Windows-based tools. This is BI administration tool which I was talking about. This is mainly used to, BI administration tool is used to manage the repository, build the repository, design it, everything. You could do it with BI administration tool. You can do it in online mode or offline mode. And job manager, this is basically to schedule jobs, to schedule different type of jobs. It could be like, for example, purging the cache. You could set up a job like that, or you could also uh, yeah, I mean, there are other possibilities which you can do it. We'll see it later. And catalog manager, basically it is used to, I mean, this is a useful feature in Unix environment, or when the server is on Unix. So this basically takes server catalog, I mean, BI presentation server catalog, and you can migrate it to a different server. I mean, different one, like from development to test servers to production server, like that. You can use it. From development to production, you can use the catalog manager to move the files, especially for the presentation server files, not for anything else. And the browser-based clients, we have analysis, we have dashboards, agents, publisher, presentation server. Okay, so we have analysis, dashboards, agents. Agents is nothing but iBots in the previous one in 10G. Publisher, presentation server administration, WebLogic console administration, middleware enterprise manager, administration and scorecarding. We have key performance indicators, key peer performance indicator, watch list. So these are all browser-based clients. I mean, this is a, I mean, separate web link we'll have for this one. WebLogic admin console and enterprise manager will have separate web link, but the remaining all will be available under one link. That's analytics link. So this thing, so main differences. Something like analysis and 10G, we have 11G, we have analysis, dashboards, and this agents, it's called iBots or delivers, publish, upload application server, it's new, and is also new in 11G. So this is about yeah, NQS config file, what I told, that's is managed by Oracle Enterprise Vision Control. Previously in 10x we had to do this and manually. So this is about the introduction. So about OBIEE 11G. So later on we'll be discussing more on these things to see more on how to start from the basics and how to build complex reports, how to design the presentation services, reports, and doing many operations. So OBIEE, so to overall summarize this one, OBIEE is a powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool, and we have something called as Oracle BI apps, which is also very useful metadata structure built in. So suppose like for Oracle ERP sources, mainly for Oracle ERP sources. So from the Oracle ERP sources, you extract the data, and you load it into a data warehouse. And since the data or the tables are standard, pretty standard, the ERP tables are standard. mostly stand mostly they I mean 90% of the time they use it's the same tables in any industry. So that data is actually loaded into a data warehouse. They have given the metadata to build the data warehouse, the ETL mappings and all these things. Once the data warehouse is built up, how the repository should be, the repository metadata is being given in the presentation server about what kind of reports, what kind of dashboards you need, all those things, everything is built in, everything is they have given. So you could actually use that one and actually reduce your development time by a lot if you are having, in case if your organization is having an Oracle EBS source. Oh, thank you for listening. Have a nice day.